Hey guys, thank you for joining me again for another episode of Missing the Missing. In this episode number 8, we're going to be going abroad for the first time, and we're going to be going over to the United States to discuss the disappearance of Asha Degree. Asha Degree was born on August 5th, 1990, into a family of 4. She had an older brother called O'Brien, who was 1 year older than her, and her mother was called Aquila. She worked at Kauai America in Lincolnton at the time, and her father was called Harold, and he generally worked the second shift at PPG Industries at the time. The family's local church was Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church. The family lived at 3404 Oak Crest in Shelby, North Carolina, United States. The children led what was described as a sheltered life, with their home life revolving around family, church, and school. They did not have a computer, so no internet, and no television in the house due to their parents' concerns over external negative influences on them. Aquila, Asha's mother, she said that Asha took this very well, describing her as shy, cautious, and, quote, content mostly to stay in the limits her parents set. Asha was, quote, scared to death of dogs, with some sources also claiming that she was afraid of the dark. She was known to always have a smile on her face and was known to be athletic, playing both basketball and baseball for her school. Asha was in the 4th grade at Fulston Elementary School at the time, where she was described as a quiet and shy student with a happy home life. She was claimed to have loved school. She only missed one school day that year, which had been in the previous September, and she was described as a model or honours student. Asha frequently received good grades, and her parents considered both herself and her brother very responsible, and given the parents' working patterns, Asha and her brother O'Brien were each given a house key, and were both expected to let themselves in after school and conduct their homework whilst awaiting their parents' return from work. Asha was 9 years old at the time she went missing. She was approximately 4'6" or 137 centimeters tall and 60 pounds or 27 kilos in weight. She is an African American female with brown eyes and black hair. She may potentially be wearing a white t-shirt, jeans and white trainers or sneakers, and her hair may well be in pigtails. In the run-up to her disappearance, there was very little out of the ordinary, with the exception of 2 things. Firstly, on Saturday the 12th of February 2000, both Asha and her brother O'Brien had gone to their respective basketball games at school. Asha was a star point guard for her team and sadly fouled out, and their team went on to endure their first loss of the season, which made the whole team obviously very sad and upset, and Asha was described as crying along with her teammates after the game. However, her parents described this not to have had lasting effects and said that she went on to cheer up relatively quickly and enjoyed watching her brother O'Brien play for his team afterwards. And secondly, on Sunday the 13th of February 2000, due to a local car accident, the power in the local neighbourhood went off. This, depending on what source you read, happened at some point between 9 and 10 o'clock that night, with the power being reinstated in the area sometime between midnight and past. While this may not have had any impact on Asha's disappearance, it was something that was out of the ordinary, hence why I have mentioned it. Harold, the children's father, he went out to work as he generally did for the second shift at the local PPG Industries plant on Sunday the 13th of February 2000. The majority of sources state that at approximately 8 p.m, Aquila Degree placed both O'Brien and Asha to bed in the bedroom in which they shared together. However, I have read in at least one source that Harold returned home sometime between midnight and past, where he claimed that Asha was asleep on the couch in a purple and white, quote, sun degrees hot in Atlanta t-shirt, until he told her to go to bed at around 12:30 that night. I'm not sure what the reason for the discrepancy is or where it came from, but it's just something I needed to point out. Moving on from this, however, as we've mentioned, there was a power outage in that area, with the power returning on sometime round about when Harold returned home from work, which is considered to have been between midnight and past. He claimed that he checked on the children at that time when he returned home and found them both sleeping in their respective beds. Harold went to bed himself after 2:30 that morning, when he checked on the children again for the last time and claimed that he'd found them sleeping soundly again in their beds at that time. Not long after this final sighting, O'Brien, Aisha's brother, he said that he heard Aisha's bed squeak in the night. However, he didn't think much of this and didn't get up to check, as understandably he believed that she was just rolling over in bed. However, it is believed that at this time, Aisha got up from her bed, either packed or took a pre-packed book bag of hers, left the house in the middle of the night in cold and dark weather, and left for a destination unknown with reasons unknown. A young girl matching Aisha's description was seen by numerous motorists that morning, which is now Monday the 14th of February 2000, walking along Highway 18 just north of its junction with Highway 180, which is approximately 1 to 1.3 miles or 2.1 kilometers away from her home. One of these motorists distinctly remembered seeing this young girl, who was believed to have been Aisha, because it struck out to him that such a young girl would be out at such a late hour by herself in such bad weather. This motorist did turn around, he did a loop to come back and try to approach Aisha. However, when he did so, it is believed that Aisha got startled, and at this time she ran off into the woods. Aquila awoke at approximately 5:45 a.m. that morning with the intention of bathing the children before school. It was generally customary for them to have been bathed the night prior. However, the majority of sources agree that due to the power outage, this did not occur. So Aquila went into the children's bedroom just before 6:30 that morning, Monday 14th of February, to find Aisha was missing. She did a quick search of the house before awaking Harold and telling him that Aisha was missing. He suggested at first that Aisha might have gone over to his mother's address, which was on the same street. However, the family made calls to this address and Aisha was not there. Sometime between 6:30 and 6:38 that morning, her parents reported her as missing to the local police department. Within minutes that morning of the report, police attended the home address of the Degree family with dogs. Now, it is stated that the dogs could not pick up on a scent, and whilst some people have offered the theory that this was due to the heavy rainfall the night before, certain research suggests that actually rainfall can increase the scent for sniffer dogs, so I'm not sure what to believe on that one. However, sadly, no scent was picked up on and therefore no lead left to follow. Aisha's mother, Aquila, she went about the neighbourhood frantically shouting for Aisha, and as a result of this, she claimed that everybody would have been awake by 7 a.m. The immediate vicinity was searched thoroughly. However, the only thing that turned up was a mitten, and this was not related to Aisha. It was at this time that the motorists that we've discussed, who had seen the girl matching Aisha's description the night before, actually came forward when they did realise that this young girl was missing. County Sheriff Dan Crawford said, quote, "We're pretty sure it was her because the descriptions they gave are consistent with what we know she was wearing." During the search of the Degree home, in particular of Aisha and O'Brien's bedroom, it was noted that a number of things had been missing, including Aisha's black backpack, family photos, black Tweety Bird overalls and a Tweety Bird purse, blue jeans with a red stripe on them, black sneakers and a white long sleeve shirt with purple lettering, her basketball uniform, a red vest with black trim, and a black and white long sleeve nylon shirt, though Aquila noted that no winter clothes had been taken from the premises. There was no sign of forced entry in the home, the door was locked, and Aisha's key was known to have been kept inside the book bag that she had presumably taken that night. Investigation discovered that Aisha's class had that month been reading a book called The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleischman. The book details the adventures of a runaway prince and common boy who both returned safely in the end, and this has led to speculation that Aisha might have taken some inspiration or motivation from the story in order to run away from home. Further investigation revealed that there may have been a sighting of Aisha entering a very distinctive green-coloured early 1970s model vehicle on the night she was last seen. The vehicle was described as having rust around the wheel wells and was described as either being a Lincoln Mark RAV4 or Ford Thunderbird. Over the next few days, at some point between the 15th and 17th of February, depending on what source you read, various items that were described as belonging to Asha were found. These included candy wrappers, a pencil, a marker pen, and a Mickey Mouse shaped hair bow, which her mother did acknowledge as belonging to Asha. These were found in a tool shed in a local nearby business called Turner's Upholstery, which was along Highway 18, near to where Asha had last been seen walking, over 1 mile from her home. However, a search of the area sadly turned up nothing else. So after the initial items were found in the local tool shed, after 1 week, the search, which had by that point consisted of 9,000 man-hours over a 2 to 3 mile radius, which is about 3.2 to 4.8 kilometers of where Asha had last been seen, was sadly scaled down. There had been 300 leads, quote, from possible sightings to tips about abandoned houses and wells where Asha may have ended up. However, County Sheriff Dan Crawford said, quote, "We've never really had that first good, substantial lead." However, the media and public were prompted to keep Asha's story alive in the media. And a month after Asha disappeared, the Degree family appeared on the Montel Williams show, with segments on Asha's disappearance also being featured on America's Most Wanted and the Oprah Winfrey Show, and media attention went national. Asha has also been profiled on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The FBI and North Carolina's State Bureau of Investigation have both gotten involved, with Asha being entered into both of their respective databases for missing children. On August 3rd, 2001, so 18 months after Asha had disappeared, a contractor doing some work in the local area actually uncovered Asha's book bag. This was found in a different direction to where she had been walking, off Highway 18 in Burke County in Morganton. This is about 26 miles or 42 kilometers from the Degree home in Shelby, North Carolina. The bag had been buried and double wrapped in black plastic bags. It was described as having Asha's name and contact number in handwriting on it, and also containing a pencil case and some clothing. The bag underwent forensic testing by the FBI. However, due to the ongoing investigation, these results have never been made public. A short while after the book bag was found, so were some bones and men's khaki pants. However, these bones later turned out to be of an animal. In October of the same year, 2001, a further plastic bag like the one Asha's book bag had been wrapped in was also found nearby. However, despite this also going off for testing, again, no results have been released, and it's not sure whether this is connected to Asha's case. As a result of the suspicious nature in which the book bag appeared to have been hidden, investigators were led to believe that Asha had disappeared as a result of a criminal matter. Again, more searches were conducted in the local area, but sadly nothing further was discovered. In 2004, the sheriff's office began to dig at an intersection in the Lawndale area, reportedly as a result of a tip-off from a local inmate. However, although bones were found at this location, they were later deemed to be also from an animal. In July of 2005, North Carolina Burke County officials, they responded to calls of a potential sighting of Asha in a grocery store called Brendletown Grocery Store on NC 64, which is about 30 miles northwest of where Asha had disappeared around 4:30 p.m. with a white woman. However, officials believe this to be a case of mistaken identity, believing that the female that was witnessed there was too young and of a too fair a complexion to have been Asha. In January of 2006, there was a report of a sighting of Asha in the Detroit area. However, this has never been confirmed or substantiated. In 2008, a year after Asha's older brother O'Brien had graduated, the Degree family decided to set up a scholarship to help a local student in honour of Asha's memory. The family also set up an annual walk to help raise awareness of and money for the search for Asha. This walk begins at the Degree family home and ends up at the place where Asha was last spotted along Highway 18, where a billboard with her information on it now stands. In 2010, another inmate in North Carolina claimed to have been involved in Asha's disappearance. However, no further information or evidence was obtained, and this is not believed to be genuine. In 2012, further billboards were erected over in the Charlotte area, which contained photographs of Asha and also age-progressed photographs which would show how she may appear if she were in her 20s. The FBI also noted that they were launching, quote, a multi-platform media campaign to help bring in new tips. The campaign would consist of social media, online promotion, media publicity, and digital billboards in the hope of jogging somebody's memory. In an interview in 2013, Asha Degree sadly pointed out that Asha's disappearance, in her opinion, had not received as much media attention as that of others, and she believed this was down to Asha's race. In January of 2014, a killer pled guilty to the murder of Shalonda Poole in 1990. This gave investigators hope of another lead in Asha's disappearance due to the proximity of both cases and the similarities between the victims. However, no firm link has been found between the cases. In 2015, the FBI noted that they were reopening the case and joined the Cleveland County Sheriff's Department and the State Bureau of Investigation in raising $25,000 as a reward for any information leading to the arrest or conviction of whoever was responsible for Asha's disappearance, and this is in addition to a further locally raised award of $20,000. In September 2017, the FBI noted that their special CARD team, or Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team, were working on the case. This team is a team with special experience in missing children's cases. They joined the investigation, quote, to provide on-the-ground investigative, technical, behavioral analysis and analytical support to find out more about what happened to Asha. The team allegedly worked alongside the FBI, State Bureau of Investigation, and county investigators, where all investigators, quote, met several times a month to go over the latest on the investigation. Since that time, there have been over 300 interviews in relation to the case. In October of 2018, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office publicly stated that there were 2 new clues in the case and appealed for information from the public in relation to 2 items. The first item is a children's book by Dr. Seuss called MacLeod's Pool. This book was borrowed from the Fulton Middle School Library in early 2000, and the cover has a fish chasing a worm on a hook. Quote, if you or someone you know had this library book around the time of Asha's disappearance, call us, said Cleveland County Detective Jordan Bowen. Library records sadly don't go that far back. The second item was a New Kids on the Block concert t-shirt. The Sheriff's Office requested that anybody who recognised or owned the shirt or knew of anybody else who owned the shirt to contact them with this information. An investigator quoted the 2 items as being, quote, critical to solving the case, though sadly declined to release any further information as to the relevance of either of these items. Asha's parents have never moved house, never changed their phone number, in the hope that should Asha be able to, she will be able to find her way home eventually. Asha's older brother O'Brien has gone on to start a new family of his own, and he has a young daughter and has given her the middle name of Asha to honour his sister. There are a few theories we can discuss in relation to Asha's disappearance. However, sadly the majority of these end up with a foul play element. The first theory we can consider is that there is potential for family member involvement. Now, statistically speaking, stranger abductions are relatively rare. However, it is certainly not uncommon for the last person to see an individual, or at the very least the closest person to them or their family, are generally considered suspects in a disappearance. In this particular case, Harold Degree, Asha's father, was the last person to see her alive, last person known to have been awake in the household at that time, and similar to the JonBenet Ramsey case, Asha's older brother O'Brien has come under some sort of scrutiny in this case. However, police were very quick to refute all allegations, and they cleared the family from suspicion very early on in the investigation. There were no indications or accusations of any form of abuse or neglect in the household, and the children were described all around as living quite contented lives. After Asha disappeared, and to this day, her family's efforts at trying to find a resolution in the case have never died down. They've been absolutely tireless. However, if there was some sort of family involvement, there was a very, very narrow window of opportunity for anything to have been committed and covered up at that time. If Harold was involved in some way, first of all, there is no known motive. Secondly, Asha shared a bedroom with her brother, who we do know heard as much as the bed squeak, so I'm pretty sure he would have heard some other form of commotion had there been one at the time. It also bears thinking about that Asha, or at least somebody matching her description who is believed to have been Asha, was later seen by various motorists walking along Highway 18, seemingly of her own accord. Aquila has also defended her family, saying, quote, "I never suspected my husband or my son. Not ever, never, ever." The second theory that we can consider is abduction from the home address. Now, there's a lot of similarities with the previous theory. There is a very narrow window of opportunity for anything to have been committed here. Surely O'Brien would have heard something going on, some form of commotion. There was no signs of a break-in, and Asha's key was missing, and there were the sightings of Asha along Highway 18 alone later that morning. It is alleged, however, that there were over 100 sex offenders in the local area, though there has been nothing solid to tie any of them to Asha's disappearance. Now on to some of the more plausible theories. Some people believe that Asha may have left the home as a result of some form of sleepwalking. Now, this may seem absolutely absurd at first glance. However, I personally know somebody, a very good friend of mine who I've known for many, many, many years, who actually is capable of and has in the past unlocked the door and let herself out in the middle of the night. So that's not entirely impossible. However, the police are under the impression that Asha had pre-packed her book bag with certain belongings that suggest she wanted to leave of her own accord initially, so this would go against this theory. In further contradiction to this theory, it's doubtful that Asha would have gotten as far as she did along the highway and not have been awoken or disturbed by the passing motorists, or even if she was awoken or disturbed by them, why she didn't seek help or try to return home and instead ran off into the woods. She was also not known historically to have suffered with any form of sleepwalking in any way. The weather was also reportedly quite bad that night, with some describing it as having been very stormy, wet and windy, so it's likely that Asha wasn't dressed for the weather. It's likely that she would have woken up at some point. The most plausible theory in the majority of people's books is that Asha planned in advance to disappear. Now, there is some speculation as to how far in advance that she had done this. Some people suggest that she packed her book bag days in advance, with some people suggesting it being more immediately before she left, and as a result of the devastation caused by the loss of the first game of the basketball season. Her reasons for leaving are unknown. However, investigators and various other people looking into the case, they have noted that there appears to be no trigger beyond potentially the basketball loss for Asha to have wanted to have disappeared. She is, as we've mentioned a couple of times, considered to have led quite a happy home life. However, potentially there were some strict rules in the home with no internet, no television. Maybe this could have prompted some form of rebellion. However, the manner in which Asha chose to leave is quite strange. If this were the reason, the middle of the night in the darkness and in the cold weather, that doesn't seem to make a great deal of sense. People have also considered, as we've mentioned, that Asha may have taken some form of inspiration from the story that her school class was reading at the time, The Whipping Boy by Sid Fleischman. As we've mentioned, this does chronicle the adventures of a prince boy and a pauper boy who run away together and have lots of adventures. But again, this is quite loose. Again, statistically speaking, as per an expert from the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, it is highly unusual for a child under the age of 12 to run away, and even more unusual for a child under the age of 10 to do so. Aisha's mother Aquila also claimed, quote, "I never thought she would go out of the house," and as we've mentioned, various sources also claim that she was afraid of the dark. Investigators firmly believe that Aisha left of her own accord that day, though her reasons for doing so are entirely unknown even to this day. It is likely, sadly, that she succumbed to some form of foul play after she left of her own accord, either by an accident or some deliberate act by somebody taking advantage of her vulnerability. There are various sub-theories within the runaway section, including the following. Aisha may well have been taken in by another family and may well be quite safe and happy elsewhere. It's difficult to believe that she would go this length of time without contacting her family, though we do know that she had no means to do so, so this is a possibility. Sadly, she may have come into contact with some form of undesirable individual who did prey upon her at a time of vulnerability and caused her some harm, which may have eventually ended in her death. Aisha may have been a victim of some form of either opportunistic or pre-planned human trafficking. Aisha may well have been groomed somehow, though this is a little difficult to believe given that there was very limited opportunity to do so, having no internet access, etc. Or potentially Aisha could have wandered into a dangerous situation of her own accord. She could potentially have wandered into the path of an oncoming vehicle, who obviously wouldn't be expecting to see a young child in the middle of the road in the middle of the night. Or she could have fallen and succumbed to an injury when she ran off into the woods. If Aisha had potentially been knocked down by a vehicle, the perpetrator may well have panicked and decided to remove any evidence. However, I would still believe there to be some evidence left behind, especially since initial searches of the area were very, very quickly, and the area where she was last seen along Highway 18, that was pinpointed just 24 hours after she initially vanished. I'm not sure what animal activity is like in the area, so while we've touched on the possibility that Aisha could have met some form of accident, maybe fallen while she was in the woods, potentially she could have been subjected to some form of animal attack. I would have liked to have believed that there would be some evidence left behind of that as well. And this also doesn't explain why her book bag, 18 months later, ended up being found double wrapped and buried. So as you can see, there are many theories as to what may have happened to Aisha, some relatively innocent, some quite disturbing. Is there somebody out there that needs to be brought to justice? Is Aisha able to come home? Where is she? You know, we need to find some answers to this and see if we can bring some peace to Aisha's family and see what happened to Aisha. As we've mentioned, in 2007, the Degree family watched their oldest son, Aisha's older brother O'Brien, graduate from high school, and this prompted them to want to set up a scholarship in Aisha's memory to help quote, to help brighten the life of another child by offering a college scholarship for a deserving local student. That was a quote from Harold and Aquila, Aisha's parents. Aquila went on to say, quote, "Every year we try to come up with something different to keep her name out there. For me, it's like another thing that I'll miss doing with her. It's like everything else I've missed in the last 8 years of doing with her, by watching other children grow up." Family friend Gloria Wilson added, quote, "Even though she's not here, we wanted to do something in her name. In our hearts, she's here with us. The scholarship will let them know we love her." The Degrees are hoping to raise enough money to award a scholarship to one student from each of the 4 high schools in Cleveland County. In 2005, Aisha's mother, Aquila Degree, said, quote, "We don't think she's dead, and until they prove it to us, then we won't believe that. All we have is hope, and we won't let anyone take that away from us." Further to that, the executive director of the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, Margaret Frierson, said that the organisation won't give up hope either, and that they continue to look for leads in the case. She is quoted as saying, "Someone somewhere knows something, and even if that something seems insignificant, that could be the key piece of information that we need to break the case." In 2008, Asha Degree, Asha's father, commented at a prayer vigil held in Asha's honour, quote, "I hope we don't have to go through another year." As we've mentioned, the FBI is offering a $25,000 reward in addition to a local community $20,000 reward for information relating to Asha's disappearance or the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for Asha's disappearance. So this is a $45,000 in total reward for that information. Pete Hamrick has also recently overseen Asha's case, and he is one of a long list of predecessors and has been quoted as saying, "It's somewhat discouraging, but we have to keep going for the family and for the community," he said. "As long as leads come in, I'm going to follow them up." He added that he prays for Asha every night. "I don't really see anything else we can do more," he said. "The community, if they do know anything, please give us a call. It would be nice to get that one lead." So, if you have any information relating to Asha's disappearance, you can call either the FBI Charlotte at 704-672-6100, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office at 704-484-4822, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 800-THE-LOST, or the Shelby Crime Stoppers if you want to remain anonymous at 704-481-8477, all from the United States. For those wishing to contribute any sort of money to help pay for the missing persons billboard that's been erected on Highway 18 in Asha's honour, I will include the details of where to send checks in the description box below if you are moved to do so. So thank you very much for spending some time here with me today, looking into the disappearance of Asha Degree. I apologise if I got any pronunciations wrong. I'm clearly not American, and I hope to branch out and do a few more international cases over the coming months. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll see what I can do. Thank you very much once again for spending some time with me, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!